On Saturday night, we were treated to an enthralling match between Mauricio Pochettino's Chelsea team and Mikel Arteta's Arsenal side. Both teams showed where they were tactically strong, and both teams really showed where their weaknesses lie. So let's start off with Arsenal and how they set up in possession. So it was their usual sort of setup, where Zinchenko tucks into midfield alongside Jorginho to create that box midfield shape. Gabriel shifts over, so does Saliba and White, and they create a back three. So it was the usual Arsenal shape, the usual Arsenal team. It's what we've become accustomed to under Mikel Arteta. The three at the back, the four in midfield in that box shape, and the three forwards up top. So Zinchenko generally accommodated that position in central midfield. However, when Martinelli would tuck in a bit and almost operate in that left half space, we saw Zinchenko often get on beyond him and support him on that left-hand side to create the width. And this shows Arteta's tactical flexibility, because when Martinelli's in that half space, he's deadly. He can make runs in behind, and Zinchenko obviously offering that support. They can play 1-2s, link up, and obviously create chances and score goals. However, unfortunately for Arsenal in this match, Martinelli and Zinchenko weren't at their best, and they didn't pose much of a threat for the Chelsea backline. But obviously, we usually see Zinchenko in that normal midfield position alongside Jorginho at the base in that double pivot. And when we do, Martinelli occupies a more of a wider position closer to the touchline, and this creates space in between Silva and Gusto for players like Declan Rice, who is a brilliant ball carrier and who can make penetrative runs in between the backline, and we saw him do that quite frequently during this match. And as we saw in the first half, Declan Rice had that chance which just went narrowly past the post, and that is an example of him making those runs in between the backline and obviously posing a threat for Mauricio Pochettino's team.
And Pochettino anticipated this box shape from Mikel Arteta's side, and this meant that he'd set up with a sort of 4-4-2, but it wasn't really a traditional 4-4-2, as we saw the two strikers of Palmer and Gallagher drop back to make this box shape themselves with Enzo and Caicedo. This is why Chelsea were not pressing as much as a traditional Pochettino side would, with Gallagher and Palmer both dropping back.
And obviously this allowed Arsenal to have a lot of time on the ball, but they weren't really effective. They were knocking it round the back, and they weren't really posing much of a threat to Pochettino's team, especially in the first half.
The midfield of Chelsea would also be backed up by the two wingers of Sterling and Mudryk, who would also drop in more narrow than they usually would to create a solid shape. Chelsea managed to shut down Arsenal by both of the two forwards of Gallagher and Palmer, dropping back to sort of mark Jorginho and Zinchenko, stopping the play coming through the middle, and obviously Enzo and Caicedo would mark the two midfielders of Odegaard and Declan Rice.
However, as the game developed, we saw Zinchenko push further up the pitch and him and Jorginho became more staggered apart. This led Gallagher and Palmer to mark Jorginho, both of them doubling up on the pivot to stop Arsenal from progressing through central areas and almost stop them from progressing from that first feeder build-up into the second. We often saw Gabriel Jesus drop into the midfield to help out Arsenal with their build-up play, and because Enzo and Caicedo were so focused on man-marking and being tight to Declan Rice, Odegaard and Zinchenko. So there was a lot of space in that middle third for Jesus to pick up the ball and create chances for Arsenal. However, because the Chelsea backline was so strong, they nullified a lot of Arsenal's threat. And as we saw, Arsenal created very few chances throughout the whole match.
And Zinchenko coming forward left a lot of space for Raheem Sterling, who was very dangerous throughout the match for Arsenal. And he was left the furthest forward by Pochettino because of this reason, as he sort of managed to find a lot of space in behind with the obviously lack of defensive cover in that left-hand side of the field. And this created a lot of dangerous scenarios for Arsenal's defence.
Well, as we know, Gabriel isn't the best defensively. And with Zinchenko dropping in, like you said, there's going to be loads of space for Sterling to exploit.
You probably noticed it throughout the match that Sterling was left very up high and wide, and he did get the ball a lot. I mean, he probably could have done a little bit more than it with it, but he did create a lot of dangerous scenarios, and unfortunately Chelsea just maybe couldn't really convert them. But it's very...
Well, there's not much cutting edge in that attack with Gallagher, Palmer, Mudryk and Sterling. There's no real clinical finisher. But they did, like you said, create a lot of chances, and they did function well as a forward, didn't they?
It was down to this that they did get their penalty in the first half. I think it was Raheem Sterling. It was down to his sort of threat out wide that Chelsea managed to get that penalty off. I know it's sort of very controversial handball, but
the chances were still created through him down that channel and stuff.
Exactly.
Arteta looked to combat this by moving Ben White a little bit further out wide, still as a right back but quite high and wide, and moved Jorginho into that right centre back, right back role, and they created a back four of him, Gabriel, Saliba, and Ben White. This back four helped nullify Sterling, and obviously they had Zinchenko, Odegaard, Declan Rice, and Jesus as that diamond midfield shape. Saka and Martinelli would tuck in, and Arsenal were effectively very narrow when progressing with the ball, but they had that back four spread across the back line to create that solidity in the defence and obviously help stop and limit Chelsea to very few chances. But as we saw in the match, it didn't necessarily work.
Yeah, this did cause a lot of problems for Mikel Arteta, as this is how Mudryk did get his goal, as he was left isolated, Jorginho was left isolated with Mudryk, and this is how he did get a very fortunate goal, But
Yeah.
it was a bit of a mistake leaving Jorginho isolated with Mudryk, because obviously, as we know, we know who's going to get the better there with Mudryk's pace and Jorginho's lack of pace.
Do you think if Aaron Ramsey was in goal instead of David Raya, Mudryk's goal would have been prevented? Or do you think it was just Mudryk? No goalkeeper would have expected Mudryk's cross to almost end up as obviously a shot.
I think
goal.
Raya's position is very unique. It's very unique
Aggressive
sort of
and
position.
forward,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it was. Yeah, like you wouldn't see most keepers there, and I think it's a very unique positioning for a keeper when the cross is coming in. So I do think if had Ramsdale been there is a chance that could have been prevented. And I think if you're Aaron Ramsdale, you'd be looking at it and you'd be kicking yourself thinking, how am I not getting this in right now because of what the performances he's
I don't
putting
think
in.
Raya will eradicate some of these areas as he progresses. I do think he is the better keeper.
I agree
I
with
think
that
it
as
just
well.
takes time to adjust because people often forget that with keepers. They need time to adjust. Don't they?
If you are Ramsdale, you'd be kicking yourself because you'd be thinking, how am I starting? But I think it would just be a confidence killer for Arteta if he just drops Raya after that, because that's not going to do any good for a keeper.
He will become good with time.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, because he is young, to be fair, for a keeper as well. So he does have a lot of time on his hand. But like I said, had Ramsdale been that goal, yes, that probably could have been prevented because Raya's position is unique, but it's also what's helped him to become such a very good keeper at Brentford, as we saw. So.
And once again, we saw Arsenal change their shape and Arteta came up with a new plan of playing a 4-4-2. This was obviously implemented so Arteta and Arsenal would become more defensively solid, and it would help them massively in the press, as we saw when Sanchez kicked the ball straight to Rice effectively. I know Gallagher was a bit switched off, but Rice, he was pressing, they were compact. And obviously we saw Rice score that brilliant goal, which did look easy because it was an open goal, but the finish was excellent, wasn't it?
It's fantastic. And that gifted goal did help Arsenal with the press a lot. As you saw, Odegaard and Jesus did become a lot more pressing strikers. Obviously, Odegaard's not a striker, but we did see him push up a lot more at the field towards the last 20 minutes or so. And to combat this, Enzo did drop in, but with the help of Saka would instantly close Enzo down and he wouldn't really have much time to sort of play out, and this caused Chelsea a lot of issues.
It was a really fascinating tactical battle, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely.
You saw how Arteta change from his box midfield shape to a diamond, to a 4-4-2, and obviously Chelsea with their
4-4-2
striker formation, 4-4-2. Mudryk
very...
and Sterling offering that threat down the
It's very
The
interesting.
flanks.
I think it shows a lot of where the game's become now, really, because you look at how tactical that is. It's ridiculous. The 4-4-2 of Chelsea, we didn't, no one expected that, like you said, with the no strikers. So I think the game's become a lot more tactical than even it was like just 5 years ago. Since Pep obviously has come into the Prem,
he's implemented a lot of new styles.
And
gives managers a new train.
I think both of these systems, especially Arsenal, of course, with Arteta, have sort of been built off the foundations that Pep has laid, because Pep's just on another level. Everyone
Inverted
just has to keep
fullbacks, possession-based football, and obviously you've got that pressing approach, which I don't say they've copied from Klopp, but obviously Liverpool and Klopp notorious for that gegenpressing team. As the clock ticked on, Mikel Arteta looked to his wonderful array of talent on his bench. He brought on Emil Smith-Rowe, Kai Havertz, Leandro Trossard and Eddie Nketiah, 4 players who did change the match and did change the trajectory for Arsenal and ultimately got them a point out of a game which at points looked like they were going to lose, because obviously they were 2-0 down. Nketiah and Smith-Rowe, their effect on the game wasn't as notable as the other two, and you may say, what was Havertz's effect on the game? What was his input? He didn't get an assist, he didn't score a goal. Well, what he did do was win the header in the build-up to Trossard's goal. And if he didn't win that header, the goal would have probably not been created. Because of his aerial height, because of his aerial threat, he managed to win that header in the final third, and a few little intricate passes, and obviously that beautiful ball whipped in from Saka led to a Leandro Trossard finish at the back post.
I thought it was very smart from Arteta to put Havertz on the pitch, because what he did have...
play him up front as opposed to in that midfield.
He did have him in that
shape.
midfield role at first, and he swapped him with Smith-Rowe, and he obviously realised that his aerial ability with the long balls that they were playing...
Because the Chelsea defence isn't super tall. They haven't got like 6'4" players who are going to bully you.
And as you saw, Havertz being up front and winning them headers led to the Arsenal goal, the Arsenal equaliser with a fantastic finish from Trossard, which was very underwhelmed by the keeper. I understand that. Obviously, the keeper...
still, he gambled on it, didn't he? And it was a great finish.
It was a great one to the back post. I know Gusto's a little bit switched off, but it's a fantastic run by Trossard and a great finish as well in the bottom corner. It's a very difficult finish. I mean, it looks easy on the eye, but if you're in that position yourself, you'd understand how difficult that is. But obviously, Sanchez maybe could have done a little bit better there. But all credit to Trossard and Saka with the fantastic cross.
That shows you another dynamic and another almost attribute to Saka's game, because we always associate him with scoring, taking players on, but that ball in was fantastic. Brilliant. It was like a proper Kevin De Bruyne and Martin Odegaard sort of whip on that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it wasn't like what you would associate with Saka, and it's showing you how he's developed.
Do you think we could see, after the goal from Trossard, do you think we could see him start more?
Yeah, I think he could, because he's such a well-rounded footballer. He can play on the right, he can play on the left, he can play through the middle, and yes, the Arsenal team does look very structured with Saka, Martinelli and Jesus.
Yeah.
But Trossard could easily play in any of those positions, and I think, as we saw much of last season as well, Martinelli did get dropped here and there for the introduction of Trossard because he offers a different dynamic.
Yeah.
He's maybe more of a killer in the box.
I think Trossard, by the way, is a very underrated player. I think Arsenal should be looking to use him more. And one player that Arteta should be looking to use more is, as we mentioned earlier, Kai Havertz in that striker role. I think he did actually do very well there. I know he doesn't really have that prolific, sort of like goal scoring style.
But alongside a striker who can put the ball in the net, could work.
I mean, we saw how that worked for Arsenal. I know they're not a long ball team, but Havertz has the ability to perform in that striker role, and I know a lot of Arsenal fans would agree with that too as well. So I think we could see the introduction of Havertz and Trossard a lot more than what we have been after this, fantastic.
A different change in shape rather than that 3 up top. Maybe, like we said, a 2 up top or maybe a 4 up top. See, it'd be interesting to see what Arteta does moving forward.
Yeah, the impact by both them players, absolutely brilliant. And Arteta should be looking to use them more, I think.
Wow, what a match that was between Mauricio Pochettino's Chelsea team and Mikel Arteta's Arsenal side. Like we said, both teams are coming into their own now. Chelsea are getting better under Poch, and Arteta is becoming more and more tactically flexible, and he's utilising his players like Havertz in different roles and different setups to get things out of games. It's the mentality you need when you want to be pushing for a title, and with Pochettino and Chelsea, like we said, they're getting better and better, aren't they? And I think, I don't know if Chelsea will be able to push for top 4 this season, but they're definitely making a better account of themselves than they did in the early days.
Yeah, I think Chelsea definitely want to watch because they are improving under Poch, and I think they're only going to get better. And Arteta is certainly showing the tactical flexibility he has as a manager, because obviously you look at the likes of Pep, who do have that at Man City, and Arteta is actually showing sort of the same, maybe not the same level, but he shows that he does have the flexibility like Pep does, and that's exactly what you need, as you said, to win the title.
Anyway guys, thank you for watching the video. If you've enjoyed this one, hit the like button and the subscribe button. There'll be more content coming around soon, don't you worry. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you lot in the next one.